What is up, guys? Taiki here, and today I'm very honored to have Dan Reeser, who is the VP of Growth at the Acala Network, to discuss Polkadot, Kusama, the farms available, as well as Parachain slot options. So thank you for coming on, Dan, and how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so just for the people that don't know who you are, can you just briefly go over how did you get into crypto and how did you become the VP of Growth at Acala?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in crypto now for about 3.5 years. I first got into Bitcoin, started studying it back in 2013. I did a information systems master's for 1 year, and one of the classes was about like Bitcoin and Tor and the dark web and everything like that. And I just kind of like went all in and started studying Bitcoin back then. Was a college student, so I didn't really have much money to get some skin in the game, but still thought it was cool, and kept following it over the years. After school, I went right into pharmaceuticals. So I was doing digital marketing and brand marketing for about 4 years in pharma. And over that time, still kept crypto as an interest, but left pharma to get my MBA and ended up taking an internship for fun in crypto before that started. Long story short, I ended up canceling the MBA plans, going full time in crypto. I started at an interoperability project called WanChain back in 2018, led their marketing for 1.5 years. Then I went to Web3 Foundation and was working on the growth and community team there. So I got to launch Kusama and then Polkadot in 2020. And then the next natural step for me was to go from Polkadot, which is kind of the base layer infrastructure that we'll talk about, one layer up to the parachains, which is where all the applications and the users and liquidity takes place. So that was where I stepped into the role at Acala in February. So I've been at Acala now for about, I think 8 or 9 months, and getting very close to launch.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. And yeah, like you're talking about you leaving your MBA for crypto. It's like crypto does that to you, right? Like when you get so deep into the rabbit hole that you just kind of abandon like what you were just doing in the past, because
Exactly.
you're just like you have this epiphany of like, oh my god, this is the next thing. So
too big of an opportunity cost to miss
exactly,
this.
exactly, yeah. That's essentially like my thing too. It's like I was playing poker and I'm like, you know what, like I need to do this full time essentially. So.
Yep.
So I haven't really covered Polkadot on my channel. I guess because there aren't really that many farming opportunities right now, but I know the Parachain slot options are coming up. So can you just briefly give over like a presentation on like what is Polkadot, what is Kusama, Parachain slot options, and then we can get into more details after that.
Yeah, sure. I'll go relatively quickly. Hopefully, if people need to go back, they can just rewatch. I'm going to share some slides.
Yeah,
that,
and they'll add timestamps too, so it'll be good.
Okay, cool. So I'll share these slides that will help with visuals and other things as we go through this. This I have always loved, especially like I've been at career fairs, and it's hard to explain this. And when you get a diagram like this, it makes much more sense. So this is Polkadot. As everyone knows, Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these layer one blockchains have been isolated and operating kind of on their own for the past 10, 11 years in crypto. And Gavin Wood is the one who he built Ethereum. So Vitalik wrote the white paper. Gavin actually implemented that in 3 weeks. And then he and the team started building Ethereum and realized that there was going to be some scaling problems. And this is back in like 2016. So the foresight of him looking forward to 2021, where we are today, and seeing that all these gas problems were going to happen and things like that. So he ended up moving on to start his own project, which was Polkadot. And Polkadot's goal is really to create this unified kind of world or ecosystem of connected blockchains. So the two main things that Polkadot does are it connects chains for interoperability. So as this diagram kind of shows, each of these little gray squares, being a blockchain or a parachain, as we call it, are all connected to the core of Polkadot, which is called the relay chain. And you get kind of out of the box interoperability with other blockchains on the Polkadot network. The other thing you get is, as a layer one chain, so Solana and Terra, for example, those teams had to actually go out and recruit their own set of validators to actually secure the network. And that requires a lot of work on the dev team, and then hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars required to get a good amount of security. With Polkadot, all these parachain teams that are coming in to basically launch on Polkadot, you the incentive to launch on Polkadot is that you get to plug in and inherit the security of all the existing Polkadot validators. So you as a team don't need to worry about security. You leave that up to Polkadot. So you can just focus on building great products. And in our case at Acala, great DeFi products. So that's kind of the intro to Polkadot. I mentioned Gavin, Rob and Peter were the other two co-founders, and these are the two kind of main organizations that you'll hear behind Polkadot. So Web3 Foundation being where all the researchers are, and then Parity being where a lot of the developers are. Covered most of these things. This is an important thing to mention, is just common misconception is Polkadot is not a smart contract platform. All the smart contracts operate at the parachain level. So Polkadot's main purpose is this: securing blockchains and connecting blockchains. And then all the layer ones are the parachains that connect to Polkadot. This kind of shows what I'm talking about. So Polkadot being this base layer infrastructure, we refer to as a layer 0. So layer 0 connecting all these layer ones like Acala and Moonbeam. These are some of the names that you'll hear quite often, and layer 1, of course, just as a comparison, being at the same level as like Near and Solana. And then going up one level, this is where all the applications will be built on Polkadot. These are there's a lot of words that the team made up when they were building Polkadot. So parachains are, if you're familiar with ETH2, these are the same thing as shards on ETH2. And then the relay chain of Polkadot is the same as ETH2's beacon chain. Polkadot's a little bit hard to understand because there's actually no equivalent network until ETH2 comes out. So Polkadot being this multi-chain network, ETH2 will be pretty similar, except for all the parachains or all the shards on ETH2 have to be the same. With Polkadot, you can kind of customize every parachain to be customized for specific purposes for different use cases and what have you. Mention that this is kind of an interesting look at one specific parachain. So you have Polkadot down here providing the security and interoperability. And what Gavin created after, so he created Solidity, which is still used by everyone to build on the EVM. He also built the EVM. So a lot of these, every parachain can kind of get an EVM out of the box. And you can also use Substrate to build customized blockchains. So you're able to basically insert like new features into the blockchain and upgrade it without forks over time, which is super interesting to me, because as we have developers that are going to be building on Acala, say in our EVM, we as the kind of core team will be able to take requirements from those developers and build new features into our chain and then just simply upgrade that without a fork. So that's going to allow us to basically become almost future-proof, because we'll be upgrading over time and improving as we go, instead of needing to completely fork the chain to do any sort of upgrade. So I thought that's pretty cool. See if there's anything else. This is pretty important to mention. So bridging on Polkadot, there's a couple different ways. There's some bridges like Snowfork and Interlay that will bridge and actually become a parachain themselves. So they'll kind of serve every parachain on Polkadot. And then the second type of bridge is a bridge from another network to a parachain. And that parachain almost becomes like this gateway into Polkadot. So in Acala's case, we got a grant from Compound. They're building an independent chain called Compound Gateway, which many people don't realize is actually being built with Substrate that Gavin Wood created for Polkadot. So that's going to be a really interesting collaboration there between Acala and Compound. RenBTC, ChainSafe, these are other examples of bridges that will be going into Acala. So I think that's probably good for Polkadot. What I can do now is maybe give a quick intro to what Kusama is, because as soon as you start diving into the Polkadot world, you're going to hear about Kusama pretty quickly. As you can see in this diagram, Kusama is the same as Polkadot. It's almost the exact same as Polkadot in terms of how it's built, the architecture, everything that I just explained about the relay chain, parachains, all applies to Kusama. Kusama, I'll use this as an example. Kusama is again, very hard to understand because it's a new concept. So traditionally in blockchain development and really any sort of development, you have a testing environment where you have apps, a test net, and then you would move to mainnet when you're ready to go. So the risk there is that you think things are working on testnet, but when you move to mainnet, things could break that you didn't expect because you didn't have real value at stake on the testnet. What Gavin and the team created with Kusama, in my opinion, is brilliant because it creates this middle ground between testnet and the high grade, high security mainnet of Polkadot. So it's this experimental mainnet where it's the same tech as Polkadot, but the value of everything is about 10 to 1 less. So the market cap of Kusama right now is about 5 billion to Polkadot's 50 billion. And most of the networks that will launch on Kusama will stick to that 10 to 1 type of ratio. So what happens is applications, new upgrades or tech that will go to Polkadot, all of this stuff goes from testnet to Kusama, and then it lives on Kusama for maybe weeks or months. And then when it's finally fully kind of battle tested and refined, then when everyone's comfortable, it'll move to Polkadot in hopes that everything that would go to Polkadot is essentially as close to perfect as it can get, because it's already been kind of seen in a real value environment on Kusama. So a lot of teams like Acala will actually be running 2 networks in parallel. It's a lot of work on us, but it's very helpful to make sure that everything that makes it to the kind of high value network on Polkadot has been really kind of tested and refined on Kusama first. There's also examples of teams that are launching only on Kusama. So Zeitgeist is an example of a prediction market. They're launching on Kusama and just gonna chill there and build their community on Kusama, which is awesome. And then there may be other teams who, another example would be like you launch on Kusama and then you migrate to Polkadot, almost like going from the minor leagues to the big leagues, you know? So that's another use case, but everyone has their own strategy. This is all brand new. So everyone's just kind of figuring out what they think is the best path for their team.
Yeah, it's pretty wild that Gavin like foresaw the, I guess, the ETH scaling issues coming and just was like, you know what, like let's design Polkadot. And even like the whole testnet mainnet example, if no money is at stake, then how do you know that if something works on testnet, well, it's not actually, it might not actually be secure, right? So yeah. I think that's like really interesting. And I guess he was also like one of the, I think he wrote like the yellow paper, right, for Ethereum. I forgot what it's called.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
there's some, maybe I can send you some links to put in the comments, but there's some cool videos from, there was a conference called Polkadot Decoded that we did online about 6 months ago. And there was a fireside chat with him and Alistair, one of the OG researchers, and one of the other guys that co-founded Web3 Foundation with him. And it's just cool to hear them talk about like way back, like Vitalik inviting Gavin and Al to a bar to talk about this thing called Ethereum. And then, and that's how things have progressed since then. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your presentation. I just wanted to.
No problem. Just going through, see if there's anything else to show you on Polkadot.
Yeah.
So yeah, so one thing that maybe we can talk about is, so I've talked about Polkadot and Kusama. We can maybe transition, if you want, to Acala, and we can talk a little bit about like an example of one of these parachains and how we use Substrate to customize Acala specifically for DeFi.
Yeah, that would be great. And then maybe we can, after that, we can go over like parachain slot auctions.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, awesome.
So I can share my screen again. I guess it doesn't hurt to talk about the team. This is the best team I've ever worked on in my career. Love working with all these people at Acala. There's about 35 of us now, and still only I think 4 or 5 of us who aren't engineers or product people. So myself and Robin, who I work with quite a bit, were the first 2 non-technical hires, which just speaks to the focus on building great tech. The team's been building with Substrate and Polkadot for about 2.5 years. They were building actually a synthetic asset platform about 3 years ago on Ethereum, and started evaluating Ethereum, Cosmos, Polkadot, and where they should be building. And when they were building the synthetic asset platform, they realized that there was actually first a need for this DeFi platform to offer things like a stable coin. So like a Polkadot native version of DAI, like a decentralized stable coin backed by DOT assets, as well as having a blockchain that can offer a decentralized exchange and staking liquidity, things like that I'll get into in a bit. But these are the 4 co-founders. So Betty, Rui Tao, Brian, and Fuyao. And most of the team's based in New Zealand. We've got about, I think, 15, 20 people in New Zealand, and there's a team in Shanghai, and then the rest of us are kind of all over the world. Our backers, Coinbase, Pantera, Parachain, that's kind of the standard crew. But at its core, Acala is an Ethereum compatible smart contract platform. So as I mentioned, all the smart contracts and applications happen at the Parachain level. And we've custom built the chain for DeFi. So I'll get into that in a second. I showed you this before. So just going back to this is what I mean by customizing the chain. So all of these products, so the DEX, the liquid staking product, the Acala dollar are all built into the chain. They're not built at the application level. So if you want to make a comparison to Ethereum, imagine Uniswap, Lido, but a decentralized version of Lido, and DAI all being built into Ethereum at its core, so that every application building on Ethereum could natively tap into the liquidity of that liquid staking product, or the liquidity of Uniswap or DAI, just getting that out of the box. That's what we're able to offer to people. And some of these DeFi customizations are really cool and important, like this gas fee customization. So we're able to allow applications and users to pay gas fees in any token. So when you bring, say, wrapped ETH through this bridge into the Acala world, your wallet will have one thing, and that's wrapped ETH. We wanted to avoid the issue of somebody having to, first of all, find out what ACA is and then go out and acquire that and then get it into their wallet in order to pay their first transaction fee. With this bring your own gas, you can pay your first gas fee with that wrapped ETH that you have. And what's actually happening is, because the DEX here is built into the chain, on the back end, that fee of wrapped ETH is going to the DEX and swapping for ACA and then paying the fee to the network. So that's one example of how we've customized the chain for DeFi. And then so within the EVM and on top of Acala in general, there'll be all these DeFi applications. The EVM will definitely be kind of the most flourishing part of the ecosystem in the beginning. I'm hoping that this is just kind of a short to midterm thing. In my opinion, Gavin didn't come and build Polkadot and leave Ethereum for everyone to just copy paste the EVM onto Polkadot and just do it all over again on Polkadot. Where we'll head in the future is we'll see new smart contract languages for building native applications on Polkadot, and hopefully we can eventually move away from this EVM that's confined kind of to the Ethereum limitations. Mentioned most of this. Pretty cool that Acala's, so Brian Chen and our dev team are big contributors to the substrate in Polkadot code itself. So we're the biggest contributors outside of the Polkadot team themselves. So that kind of goes back to my conversation about how we're just such kind of engineer focused. And then this slide I like to just include because it's easy to talk about like what could be and all these kind of like conceptual things about these parachains, but this is a really cool example of what's coming soon with Acala and what we'll likely see on other blockchains as well within the Polkadot ecosystem, where we're beginning to get into this world where we're calling it hybrid finance, where fintech and crypto are beginning to blend. And current.com, very close friends of ours now, they're based in New York, and they're this US fintech application with about 3 million users. They've been around for about 5 or 6 years. Started out actually trying to build on Ripple, and then they went to Ethereum, and then they decided that for them to get crypto in the hands of millions of people, they wanted to first start a fintech company, acquire those millions of users, and then bring crypto to them when it was ready. So now it's the time where they believe we're ready. So that's why we're working with Current to basically bring them a DeFi backend. So Current customer funds, when this is finished, will eventually flow into Acala and earn yield in this yield engine that we're building that leverages things like liquid DOT staking, stable coins, even Compound. and that those returns will then be sent back into the accounts and the funds of these current users. So they'll be able to enjoy the yield from DeFi without actually having to use like public and private keys and things like that. So that to me is really exciting, because that's how we actually get adoption of crypto for like normal people who don't want to use all these complicated technologies. So that's one thing that's coming. And then Compound, I already explained, where there'll be DOT and lDOT going into the Compound gateway. And then Compound will have this cash token that we'll be able to offer within Acala's DeFi environment, as well as all the other applications building on Acala.
Yeah, it's very, very thoughtful how it's designed. Like, for example, like the being able to use, you bring your own gas, right? I know, like I have like a Discord and stuff, and like everyone's like, oh, like I bridged, but I don't have gas. Can someone,
exactly.
can someone send me 1 gas token? I'll give you 2 back. And like that, I mean, from like a user experience standpoint, like it's pretty difficult, right? Especially if you're new. I actually see like a lot of similarities between like Acala and Terra, right? You can use UST for gas on Terra.
Yeah.
Terra is also trying to bring real world applications to just normal people, like not just DeFi people, folks with like private keys and whatnot. So yeah, I'm super excited about.
They've been doing a great job with that.
Yeah.
Let's see. So everything that I just mentioned, I told you that Polkadot and Kusama are similar in that we'll be running 2 parallel parachains. So Karura is our Kusama-based blockchain, and it's essentially it's the same concept as Polkadot. So, the same concept as Acala. So we'll have all the same. We already do have all the same products actually already launched on Karura. So this is what I was saying. It's so helpful for teams, because not only are we able to get the products out there and help kind of improve even things like the parameters around our DeFi products, but we already launched our stablecoin. We launched the liquid KSM staking, and we launched the DEX and several pairs that we can get into. But this proves that Acala already works. We've already done it on a mainnet, and it's ready to go. So when Acala is ready, we will have so many things that we've learned from the experiences in launching on Kusama. I can actually pull up, this would be interesting to see right now. So the Karura stats.karura.network shows the current kind of network stats. So, yeah, there's about 75,000 account holders. Daily active users is ranging between around 1,000, probably on average. And yeah, TVLs are total around 391, with quite a bit of that within our DeFi protocols. Then yeah, I think the next thing that might be helpful. So we are getting very close to the November 11th start of the Polkadot Parachain auctions. And what this is how you launch on Polkadot. So it's the same thing on Kusama, but what happens is you as a team, I'll start here, but you as a team need to win this auction, and you're essentially going against other parachain teams who also want those same slots on Polkadot. So they're kind of like, imagine like a parking lot with only 10 spots, and you're going to like a huge game. It's going to be high demand to get those 10 spots. And in this case, there's an auction for those slots. So it goes one by one. So right now there's a bunch of us parachain teams kind of lining up at the door, ready to launch on Polkadot. And we're preparing for this auction where we need to basically bid with DOT, and the highest bid in that auction wins that slot and has the ability to launch then on Polkadot. But what these are, the reason why there's 2 things here, so Crowdloans and Parachain slot auctions. The comparison that I've been using recently is just an auction on a home. When you go to a standard auction, you're bidding out of your pocket. So if there's a house that's, say the bid is 100 grand, you're going to bid 90 grand, 95, and 100. If you win, you're kind of paying that out of pocket. If someone else comes in at 110 and you can't afford that, then you lose the auction. But imagine if you could come to the same auction, but come as a crowd with your family and friends and maybe other investors that are kind of helping you to get that house, and you could pool your assets together and then share the house together, or whatever you want to share the upside of the house as an investment. That's the kind of idea that's happening with these crowd loans, because it increases the competitiveness of the bid when you come in as a crowd. And then the crowd, in this case, would share in the appreciation of that asset. In the case of crowd loans and Parachain slot auctions, this is what's happening. So teams like us, Parachain teams, have two options for actually bidding in the auction. You can bid out of your own pocket if you're, say, for example, sitting on a bunch of dots. But the second and very much the most common option is to do what's called a crowd loan, where you're crowdsourcing DOT from the whole community, and they're supporting you in your bid to win that auction. At its most simplest, so you as a community member contribute DOT to a Parachain team. You agree to lock that DOT for 2 years. There's something that Acala built to help solve that problem that we can touch on later. But in return for you contributing these dots and actually unstaking your dots, because you need to unstake them and give up those staking returns in order to contribute. So that's the one trade-off. But in return, you earn the network's tokens that you support when they win the auction. So in Acala's case, you would earn ACA for that support. When Acala launches, you would get ACA. And then after 2 years or 96 weeks exactly, you get the whole original DOT contribution back, which is why it's called a crowd loan, because you're essentially loaning, then you get it back. And the crypto that you earn in the meantime, the ACA, stays with you as well. We will be hosting our crowd loan on our actual website, so acala.network. You can also contribute with exchanges. I know recently Binance, OKX, KuCoin, Kraken, they're all Huobi, they're all offering this to their users as well. And then wallets, mobile wallets are offering this as well. But this is the overall process. These crowd loans go live. This actually is happening today. For some teams, those could start as soon as tomorrow. So today's November 4th for the recording here. And then the Parachain slot auction is what starts on November 11th. So these Parachain slot auctions are 7 days. This looks super confusing, but it's actually pretty simple. There's a 5-day period here, days 3 through 7, where teams will be bidding, and the strategy is just to have the highest bid at all times, because what happens is it's called a candle auction, because the name actually comes from an old type of auction where when the candle's light went out, the auction would end. So you wouldn't be able to predict when the end was. This helps to prevent sniping. If you've ever done like an eBay auction, people come in at the last second and just shoot the bid up to try to win. So the way these work is you have no idea when the auction is actually going to end until the auction is over. And then there's a randomly selected time. So in this case, you've got Parachain B and Parachain A bidding, say, back and forth, but then Parachain A had the highest bid from this point on, and the block or the point in time that was selected is here. So Parachain A had the highest bid at this point in day 4, so they win the auction. If the randomly selected time was picked here, then Parachain B would have won, but in this case, Parachain A was winning this whole time, so they won the auction, and they get to launch. One question that people also ask is what happens if a team doesn't win? So there's these things roll out in batches of 5. So if you don't win auction 1, your crowd loan will stay open, and you can use the same DOT to rebid in auction 2, 3, 4, and 5. If a team doesn't win by the end of auction 5, then all of that DOT is actually just automatically returned to the people who contributed to them. So all in all, it's a really cool model, brand new to crypto, and it's extremely safe because no funds are ever being touched by any of these teams. Like what we saw back with ICOs was an actual exchange of value. You would send ETH to a random address, and then you would just pray that they would send you something back. And sometimes it didn't work out too well. In this case, the DOT is contributed to this trustless account that's actually locked in the Polkadot relay chain itself. And then after 2 years, that's trustlessly released back to you as a contributor. And like I said, if the team doesn't win, you get your DOT back anyway. So I can probably confidently say there's a 0% chance that you would lose your DOT in this process, because everything is being done trustless.
Yeah,
trustlessly.
it's beautiful design, and there's like some game theory going on too, right? You
Yeah.
can't just like wait till the end to like see how many people, how many parachains, or like how much is like the top bid at the time. You kind of have to just
Uh-huh.
commit to it. Yeah, and it's
Exactly.
like I guess the only thing you're missing out on is like the opportunity cost of staking your dot.
Staking. Yep.
Yeah, but I think you'll go over that later too.
Yeah. So this is the last thing I'll mention on the crowd loan. So our crowd loan will launch very soon. And every team has their own kind of, this is all stuff that you actually think about when you build your white paper even, is like how much percent of your supply are you going to dedicate to these crowd loans and things like that. So 17% of the Acala supply will be dedicated to our crowd loan rewards. And our supply is 1 billion, but that's fixed. So the supply won't be getting diluted. We'll stay at 1 billion. We don't need to have inflation because, like I said, we get our security from Polkadot. So there's no need for that inflation to pay validators. When you're a parachain, you just use the proof of stake of Polkadot. The other thing to mention is that this will be, so 20% will be liquid upfront and then 80% will vest. And I think the next thing that would make sense to go over is probably this liquid Crowdloan DOT that I think is actually pretty cool. So going back to the conversation about crowd loans, one of the things that I mentioned was that when you contribute to a crowd loan, you're essentially agreeing to lock up your DOT for 2 years. We took that feedback from the community that a lot of people came back saying this is a really long time. There's a lot that can happen in 2 years in crypto, so I would prefer not to have my DOT locked for 2 years. So Brian and the team built this product. It's a liquid derivative of the Crowdloan DOT called lcDOT. So with this product, you can basically contribute to the Crowdloan. And when we distribute the ACA, which is pretty soon after we launch, as soon as the network's up and token transfers are enabled, we'll distribute all the ACA rewards to people, but at the same time, we'll also distribute lcDOT to you as well. And you get 1 lcDOT for every 1 DOT that you contributed. So if you contribute 100 DOTs to the Acala Crowdloan, you'll get your ACA rewards, and then you'll also get 100 lcDOT. So although your underlying DOT is locked for 2 years, you have this liquid asset lcDOT that you can then go on to use within Acala's DeFi protocols, and then any application building on the Acala EVM, for example. So a lot of really interesting and creative things that you can do with this. I wish we could like maybe somehow source all the brains that are working on how to use lcDOT, because there's a lot of different strategies that people are thinking through. And I think your audience is savvy enough to like think through some of these. So just like off the top of my head, you'll have lcDOT, and this lcDOT is, you have to have this to redeem your original DOT after 2 years. So this is like a receipt. If you sell your lcDOT, you have no way of getting back your original DOT unless you buy more lcDOT. You know what I mean? So what people can do are several things. lcDOT is tied to the Crowdloan DOT. So that Crowdloan DOT is not earning staking rewards, because remember, you had to unstake your DOT to contribute that. So lcDOT itself doesn't earn yield. So compared to DOT, I would expect that the market will determine that it's less of a value than 1 DOT or 1 lcDOT. So people could, if they wanted to, exchange that lcDOT for DOT, probably at a discount, but then they would get this DOT token that they could then go stake and earn the 12 to 15% staking returns with that DOT. What you could also do is you could do the crowd loan, get lcDOT, acquire DOT with that, and then you could actually use that for another crowd loan. So you're almost doing like a second crowd loan with the same DOT that you had. But again, you have to get that lcDOT back to redeem the DOT. The other thing to mention is that lcDOT will be offered as a collateral within Acala's stablecoin minting system. So you can collateralize that. Yeah. So the lcDOT along with regular DOT, liquid DOT, which is the staking derivative, these will all be collaterals to mint AUSD as a stablecoin. And then another one is there'll be pairs on the DEX. So you could, for example, provide liquidity to the lcDOT DOT pair or the lcDOT AUSD pair, and earn that way as well. And there'll probably be liquidity incentives and all that too.
Oh, yeah, that's really cool. I'm super bullish lcDOT now.
Yeah.
Being able to use it as collateral is super important, at least for me as a farmer, because I get to unlock some stable coins, or I get to borrow against it and like farm with that too. And I guess if you are a longer term bullish DOT, you can acquire lcDOT as at a discount, right? Because it's not accruing any staking rewards, and there's going to be a discount because I feel like liquid tokens get a premium. So if you're like, you know what, like bullish DOT, as I can just take my DOT and buy more DOT with it because lcDOT will most likely trade at a discount. And then you can pair that with your own DOT, be a liquidity provider, earn fees that way. Yeah, there's like so many things you can do with lcDOT. And even when I was doing my initial research on DOT, like I was asking this like Polkadot expert, he's like, should I just stake my DOT or should I just like, participate in an auction? And he was like, yeah, me personally, I'm just gonna just prioritize like staking it because it's more liquid. The returns are more secure. It's just like you can kind of see like, okay, 12 to 15%. But with lcDOT, I can definitely see myself taking, well, I don't own any DOT, but I probably should own more DOT. But stake is just turning it into lcDOT and then using that in DeFi in Acala. That's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. One thing to mention just in terms, because everything has trade-offs. So I just wanted to explain one thing about how this works. We're in a bit of a chicken and egg problem because we can't launch on Polkadot until we win an auction. And since we don't have a live parachain, we can't launch products on the parachain. So just so you know, there's a very short period of time where there is an element of trust involved. When this begins, the DOT will be held in an account at the Acala Foundation. It's a multi-sig that only has how do I say it? Basically one utility. So that account can only contribute to the DOT. It can't do anything besides that. So that the DOT will all go to that account. It'll go into the Acala Crowdloan. And then as soon as the Acala Parachain launches on the mainnet, that account will then be transferred to the ownership of the Acala Parachain itself and governed by the Acala on-chain governance. So that's just one thing, is that there is this transition to being fully trustless, but we just literally can't have it be trustless because we don't have a live blockchain yet. But in the future, this will be a product that we also look to potentially use with other parachain teams. So offering an lcDOT for other parachains that are going for a parachain slot. And of course, by then we will be well into our launch and this will be a fully trustless product.
Gotcha.
So I think that's good on lcDOT. For people, since the Crowdloan's coming up so soon, I mentioned the Acala.network is our homepage, and then we have these things going on now called quests, which basically helps you kind of get ready for the Crowdloan, and you can earn a 2% bonus in the Crowdloan itself just by doing this. And all it is it's connected to your Polkadot.js account. So it helps you to download Polkadot.js, which is the extension wallet for Polkadot. You verify your email, and then all you have to do is sign a message that proves that you have, I believe it's at least 5 DOT in your account. And then you get that bonus, and it just kind of helps you learn how to get started. So this is really cool that Brett and Robin on our team built out for this. So yeah, where do you want to head now? Do you want to go into Karura and kind of what's going on over there?
Yeah, because Karura is actually live, right?
Yeah.
I know there's like a liquid Kusama stuff. That's also super cool. If you can kind of briefly go over what you can actually do right now on Karura for my fellow humble farmers, that'd be great.
I'll just give maybe a little walk around and a tour of the UI here. So I mentioned, Acala and Karura are both primarily DApp platforms. So our EVM, it's taken a little bit longer than the standard EVM because we customize this EVM to be able to use substrate as well. So not just confined to what Ethereum can do. So very soon the EVM Plus that we're building will launch on Karura, then we'll be able to have applications building and launching there. We've built these, the Karura apps as kind of a reference implementation for teams to see kind of like what's possible. And within this, there's all the products that I mentioned before. So this is the homepage. This is just a test account where you can check on like your ongoing vaults, how you're performing. There'll be a chart here when you actually have assets in your account, and then all of your assets that are currently in your balance. This is the part of the application, kind of similar to like a maker, where you can create vaults based on certain assets like KSM and then liquid KSM, which is the staking derivative. And of course, that allows you to mint the KUSD. So in Acala's case, it's the Acala dollar, AUSD. And in Karura's case, it's the Karura dollar, so KUSD. And that's that part. Swap, so this is the portion of the dApp that's more like a Uniswap v2 type style. So you've got the regular swap here with all the supported assets, and then this is where you would go to provide liquidity to any of these pairs. One thing that I'll mention is we've done these bootstraps. So this is kind of like a what do they call it? An LBP on
yeah, liquidity bootstrapping full on balance.
Yeah, it's like an LBP where we're able to actually start these pairs and actually have like this warm-up period where there's this bootstrapping of both sides of the pair to make sure that when this pair launches, there's no ability to really manipulate the price with huge amounts of liquidity. So that's what this is for. Everything that we do in terms of launching new pairs goes through our forum. So for example, this one was just recently launched with another Parachain team. So this was the first cross-chain listing within Kusama between Bifrost and Karura, which is pretty cool. So this token was transferred cross-chain within Kusama and didn't need wrapping. That's how this works within Kusama and Polkadot, is it's all native token transfers instead of all this wrapping. So this one also went through our governance forum, was voted on, approved, and then this bootstrap took place. And then now it's been live and trading and people providing liquidity for I think a couple of weeks now. Next part to highlight is liquid staking. So this is a massively valuable product for anyone who's holding KSM, and for DOT, this will be a multi-billion-dollar TVL product by itself, because right now DOT is about 50 billion in market cap. Last I checked, this has probably gone up a lot recently, but maybe 25-30 billion dollars in DOT is staked right now. And all of that DOT is just locked away doing nothing. It's sure it's earning some returns, but it could be doing so much more. So with LDOT, just like with LKSM, we're going to be unlocking billions of dollars of liquidity from that staked DOT. And people will be able to come, just like they can here, put in the amount of KSM that you want to stake, and you are essentially minting this liquid KSM or LKSM for your KSM. And your LKSM is like a yield bearing token. So the balance on your LKSM, you'll actually see it be going up. So it'll be, as your KSM earns, your LKSM balance will increase over time. So same thing for Acala, will be just replace this with DOT, and then liquid DOT will be one of the first products we launch for Acala.
Yeah, super cool. And you'll be able to use like LKSM as collateral to mint KUSD in the future, right?
So
yeah.
Even now, so even here,
okay.
LKSM is a collateral option along with KSM. And yeah, same on Acala, it'll be DOT and LDOT, and then lcDOT. All these things have to be approved through governance, but they most likely will be, because they're just high quality assets. And then when we have wrapped Bitcoin coming over and wrapped ETH, and even in the future, other, like say if we're other layer ones, these will be also most likely, they could be approved as collaterals for minting AUSD and KUSD as well. The last kind of primary section here is these are the pairs that currently have liquidity programs going on. So yeah, I can just kind of run through these if you want, but this is basically where you stake your LP token. So KUSD and KSM. We have this element of a loyalty bonus, which is, I haven't seen in other platforms, but essentially it helps us to gain loyalty from people. So there's all these people who like to hop around quite a bit, but this incentivizes people with a little bit more of a bonus to stick around until the end of this loyalty program period. So that's why we have with loyalty and then without loyalty for these, just to clarify that. So KUSD and KSM, here's the Bifrost pair that I just mentioned that is fairly new. So this is around 133 right now in APR. KSM and LKSM. This is an interesting pair because obviously LKSM and KSM are fairly closely tied in value. So the impermanent loss is in comparison to something with a stable coin would most likely be less there. So that's LKSM, KSM, and then Karura, so the native token of KR, the native token of Karura, and KSM is the last pair. These will continue to grow. We're still kind of in the early days of all this stuff. So we're waiting on some other Parachain teams to be ready to come and list their tokens and start these liquidity mining programs with them as well. So more cross-chain listings will be coming. And then, of course, like I mentioned, what I'm most excited for is to get the EVM out there in the wild and start having other teams building on top of all of this. Governance, this is still not fully deployed. We're mostly using our forum for all these proposals and discussions and things like that. And then if you're on the UI here, this is our wiki if you need kind of help, with everything that I just showed you. And then the stats page is actually what I showed earlier in the video, where you can check in on current stats for Karura. So that's a little bit of a tour of this.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is really useful, and thank you for the presentations. They're like really easy to understand. So cool. I want to respect your time. I know I have to head out relatively soon. So I guess in terms of like parting words, is there anything you want my audience to take away from, I guess, like everything that's going on with Polkadot, Kusama, Acala, Karura, key takeaways, and also like where can my audience like find you, like hear more from you, right? So Twitter, social handles, etc.
Yeah. I'm just excited. Like, thanks for having me. This is really cool to be able to get the word out about everything that I've been kind of excited about for the last couple of years. I've been trying to shout about how big of a deal like Crowdloans are and Polkadot and Kusama and all this, and I think it's finally starting to catch on with the broader crypto ecosystem, which is really cool to see. This, having worked at Web3 and even now at Acala, I can't tell you how good these engineers are. Polkadot is an engineering first ecosystem. We value that in all the Parachain teams. We have the most respect for the teams who are coders. All the other stuff comes second. So that's just one thing, is just definitely just keep paying attention, digging in. I do my best on Twitter and other places, YouTube sometimes, to explain these things in ways that people can understand. A lot of this stuff is so technical and so complex because it's just so high quality that it is hard to understand how it all works. So I would just encourage everyone to kind of follow people, dig in and start learning and just ask questions. There's a lot of people on the Polkadot Discord that are willing to help you out if you have questions. The Acala Discord is huge now. I think there's like 70,000 people, and we're always in there asking questions or answering questions. So just dig in, learn as much as you can, and then just keep an eye out for all these launches on Polkadot. The auctions are going to be super exciting. I'm pretty sure there's going to be well over, multiple billions of dollars will be contributed to these crowdloans just for the first 5. and there will be more and more parachains rolling out into 2022 and beyond, of course. So just, yeah, keep an eye on that. If you want to follow, so Acala is at Acala Network on Twitter. That's one of our most active channels. And then, yeah, my Twitter's at Dan Reeser _. Maybe you can add these in the show notes, but yeah, so appreciate the time. And I know we went a little long, but yeah, I appreciate everyone's attention, and definitely reach out if you have questions or, yeah, or want to learn more. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, I'm super excited about the future of Polkadot. Yeah, it's like the very thoughtful design engineering first makes sense. So thank you guys for watching, and have fun farming out there.